So everybody's familiar with the minor pentatonic scale, right? But the question that I have for you is, do you know just the minor scale without the pentatonic? Stick around and I'll show you exactly what that is and the difference between that and the major scale. Hello, my name is Keith. Welcome back to the channel. So as I mentioned, everybody probably already knows the minor pentatonic scale, been there, done that. But where is that derived from? It's derived from somewhere. It's derived from the minor scale. So we're here to learn exactly that. So I'm going to run through the minor pentatonic scale just as a reference point. All right, so the minor pentatonic scale, we'll start here and we're going to do everything on the 5th fret for an A minor pentatonic scale, which is just like this. All right, so that's the minor pentatonic scale. Again, you're already probably familiar with that. There's tons that you could do with it, but I think it's also important to understand where it's derived from. So much like its counterpart in the major scale, it has its own scale, and here it is. I'm going to go ahead and run through it once in the key of A, and I will count it out for you after I do that. So here it is. I'm going to do it kind of slow to begin. Okay, so what was that? That was the minor scale, and I'm going to slow it down, count it out. So 5th fret of the low E string, 7th fret, and then the 8th fret. And then the same thing down on the A string. So that's the 5th fret, 7th, and then 8th. And then the 5th fret of the D string, 7, and that brings us to our first octave. They're both A's. So starting from here, we'll continue on up. So we start right here on that 7th fret of the D string, and then the 4th fret of the G string, then the 5th fret, then the 7th fret, then down to the B string, the 5th fret, then the 6th, then the 8th, and then you finish it off right here on that high E string for the A, that next octave. All right, so now that we have that established, we know that the minor pentatonic scale comes from that minor scale. So how exactly does that work? Let's hop down again to the fretboard and we'll count it out, and I'll show you exactly what it is. So if we are going to look at just the minor scale, the minor pentatonic scale is the 1, flat 3rd, 4th, 5th, and the flat 7th. So what does that mean? First, we have to understand what that minor scale is as far as numbers and relations go and intervals. So we start right here on the 5th fret. That's our root. It's always going to be the 1. That's an A, right? And then a 2 on that 7th fret. Then the flat 3rd is right here. That's what makes it a minor. That's how you change any chord from major to minor. You flatten the 3rd. So instead of playing the 3rd up here, we're flattening it down here. So that's the flat 3rd. And then the 4th, the 5th, the flat 7th. No, the 6th. Sorry, flat 7th. And then back to the root. Okay, so what does that mean out of those numbers? 1, 2, flat 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6, flat 7, and then the root. We take those numbers and we have the minor pentatonic scale that we all know. 1, flat 3rd, 4th, 5th, flat 7th. And here's the octave. So this is exactly where the pentatonic scale comes from. It comes from that minor scale. The minor pentatonic scale comes from the minor scale. So it's important to understand that for many reasons. And this is the worst part of the video where I say, hey, like, subscribe. But, you know, it really does matter. It makes YouTube think that the videos are somewhat important, which if you're watching this, I hope you think they're important too. That's the whole goal of this whole thing. But even more importantly, learn something. A little goes a long way, but back onto the video. So if we're looking at it and you're able to count things out, you will be able to take those numbers and make your own chords out of them. And you could even not even stay within the pentatonic box. You could add in notes from the minor scale in addition to what you already do. It's just little things here and there that you could do and just switch things up. So that's why I think it's important to understand. So now that we have the minor pentatonic and the minor scale in our heads, let's just run through the major scale once. Now, I do have a video on the major scale and how to count that out in detail. I want to run through it fairly quickly here just so we can kind of understand the relationship between the two and what's the difference. All right, so if we're looking at the scale, the major scale, we have it right here. This is an A major scale. All right, so here is the major pentatonic scale. All right, so now that we have the major scale, major pentatonic scale, minor pentatonic scale, how do we know when to play them? What's the difference between the two when it comes to music? So the rule of thumb here is major scale, major chord, minor scale, minor chord, right? Now, this isn't going to apply to everything, and there's going to be people that say, oh, it doesn't matter what you play as long as it sounds good. And I agree with that. If it sounds good, then play whatever you want. But just to keep this whole thing, kind of civil here, let's just roll with that just for the purpose of the video, and let's just do an experiment here. We're going to play a minor chord and play a major scale over that minor chord and see how that sounds. So it's always good to, when you're practicing scales, start with a reference point, whether it be just the root note, in this case an A, or even better, if I'm doing an A major, I'll hit an A major chord. See, that sounds right. And if I'm doing a minor, I'll do a minor chord. So we have that established. Now let's play a minor chord and then jump through the major pentatonic scale. See how that sounds. Oh, that doesn't sound right, does it? It might sound better if I do minor pentatonic scale over the minor chord. So here's the minor chord. Now that sounds a little more like what we're used to hearing. All right, so let's do the opposite. We're going to take a major chord and play the minor scale over it, see how that sounds. So here's an A major. It doesn't sound right. Let's go ahead and do the major chord and a major pentatonic scale. It sounds a little bit better. There's a bunch you could do with this, but that's the difference between the two. That's what I'm getting at here. So that summarizes position 1 of the major scale and the minor scale. And position 1 meaning there's different permutations that you do up the fretboard, and it changes based off of the cage shape, but we're not going to get into that now. What I wanted to illustrate was the fact that I think a lot of people know the minor pentatonic scale but don't know the minor scale, and maybe the same thing applies if you've gotten far enough to the major scale and the major pentatonic scale, but at least this will clear it up for you if it hasn't already been in your guitar lexicon. But at least I hope this whole thing clears it up for you as far as where that minor scale derives from. One last thing before we go. One scale, you know them all. I put out a short on this, but shorts are fleeting and ephemeral. But we have the A minor pentatonic scale here, right? What happens if you want to play a B minor pentatonic scale? You just take that same exact structure and you move it up here, right? This is a B. So we have the 5th fret here is an A. We start here on the 7th fret because that's a B. We play that same exact sequence of notes. That's our B minor pentatonic scale. A minor, B minor, And then we have a C right here. Right? That's a major scale. Yeah, that was funny, right? So here is the C minor pentatonic scale and a C major pentatonic scale, which is the same thing up here, right? And that sounds like My Girl because it is My Girl. So if you learn your scales, hey, you learn at least one song out of this whole thing. In any case, I hope this was at least somewhat helpful. Again, if you like what you saw here, subscribe and let me know what you think. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I will talk to you later. Bye. And it landed on the table.